Tempo runs, how do you do them? Well, in this video, we're going to have a look at how to perform them properly.
Not quite my tempo.
So the tempo run, also known as the threshold run or the lactate threshold run. What this is it's running at a pace which is comfortably hard. I like to think of it as the pace that's quite enjoyable when you're pushing hard and it's fun, but you're not going absolutely all out. It's not something that you're going to sustain forever, but you could definitely keep it up. So comfortably hard, what does that mean? Well, it's the pace where VOBLA kicks in, which is the onset of blood lactate accumulation, also known as your lactate threshold. Now this pace is different for everyone because it kicks in at a certain intensity. It's the change between aerobic running and anaerobic running. Exactly where that changes over is where your threshold is, and that's going to be slightly different for each person and their running. So the idea is that you are running at a pace just below the maximum of where your body can clear the lactic acid from your blood quicker than we create it. So how do we find out what our tempo pace is? Well, this is a really good question. So one way to do it is to go and have a lactate threshold test, which is a pretty grueling process, and you need someone with you to take your blood work every 3 minutes. So that's not very accessible for everyone, but that will give you the exact number. However, we can do the run without taking the blood work, and then we can take some things from that to help us figure out what this pace should be. What you're going to do is you are going to run for 30 minutes as hard as you can. You have to be really strict with yourself here because you don't want to go out too fast and then tail off towards the end, and you don't want to go out too slow and then not hit a great time. It may take a few attempts to get the pacing right, but this is just good runs that you're going to do. So you need to hit the entire 30 minutes as consistently as possible. Over those 30 minutes, what you're going to do is you're going to take your heart rate at the 10-minute mark, and then you're also going to take your heart rate at the end. You're going to add them both together and then divide them by 2. This heart rate is your tempo heart rate. So when you're running your tempo run, you should be aiming for that heart rate. It should be roughly between 85 and 90% of your maximum heart rate. This isn't the only thing we can do though, because over that 30 minutes, you're going to have an average pace. That average pace is your tempo pace. And then what you should find is that when you do your first tempo run, if you try to stay at that pace, which is roughly the same as that heart rate, they should match together quite well. When you're running that, you should feel about a 7 to 8 out of 10 in effort. If you think of this as a conversational way, you're not going to be able to hold a full conversation whilst running, but you should be able to talk in very small sentences. If you're running with a buddy, it shouldn't be too hard to say, right, we're going to turn left here, or turn right, straight up there. But you're probably not going to say much more than that. Now obviously running this 30 minutes flat out can be quite difficult, especially if you're not used to pacing yourself or doing these tests. It will take a little bit of working through it. Maybe you have to do it a couple of times. And make sure also you do it on a day when you're feeling fresh and good. You don't want to go out after a long run day and try and hit it, because if you're feeling bad, you won't get the results. And then all of your tempo sessions will be maybe a little bit slower than they should have been, and you won't get the same sort of gain in speed. Another way of jumping to your tempo pace without having to do the test is you can probably add 10 seconds per mile to your 10k pace. If you're working kilometers, that's 6 seconds per kilometer. By adding this time, that should be roughly your tempo pace. So you can try run at that pace and see how it feels. If you do that pace and it feels about a 7 to 8 out of 10, you're probably in the right ballpark. So now that you know your pace, how long should you tempo for? So when they first came up with tempo running, they did it by doing a study where they took 18 runners and they got them to run a 14-week plan of once a week doing a tempo run for 20 minutes, and all the rest of their runs were recovery. What they found is that these runners made a 4% improvement to their lactate threshold. Specifically, this means that they went from 5:43 down to 5:29 in pace. Now that's a massive improvement. So over 10 miles, that's 2 minutes and 20 seconds that they're going to knock off of their time, which is incredible. So that shows that one tempo session of 20 minutes a week for 14 weeks is enough to improve your performance by up to 4%, which is absolutely amazing. Now, you don't have to just do 20 minutes. You can extend this for longer. I think 20 minutes is probably about the minimum you want to do. So here's an example session. So what you can do is you can do a mile warm-up followed by your 20 minutes at tempo, followed by a mile cool down. If you want to shorten the session slightly, you can make the warm up and cool down a kilometre instead of a mile. As you progress with your running, you can either extend that session or you can just do an extra session a week. It's really up to you. But this is a really great session to add into your training that you can combine with things like intervals and hills. What I would say though is that you probably don't want to push the tempo stint much longer than 45 minutes, because at that point you're going well beyond a threshold test and you might actually not gain as much from the extra time as you think you would, because the body does need this stimulus to cause it to adapt. However, too much stimulus will just knacker you out and you'll burn out. So if you're still a little bit unsure about why you should do the tempo run, then you should click on this video here to find out. And if you want to know when you should put a tempo run into your training, click down here. If you've got any questions about it, please drop it in the comments below. Try the example session that I put up above. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of when I upload. I'll see you in the next one.